I was trying to think of getting a band together, and I had a name, The Police. I wrote a manifesto. We don't care about that. We just want to, laughable, really. In 1976, I was playing in a prog rock band called Curved Air, and I've kind of hushed that up because of the punk thing, but now prog rock is back. I was in a prog rock band called Curved Air. I had boots up to here, hair down to here, and it was all prog rock. And one night we had a night off in a northern town far away from London, actually too far to drive back that night, so we spent the night, and the next night saw a band called Last Exit, who were a pretty slick jazz band, but the jazz didn't impress me, the bass player did. On bass was a bass player who could sing. And apart from the fact that there was a rather obvious, noticeable golden shaft of light coming from heaven upon his magnificent brow, that guy's a rock star, and he's playing in this jazz band. Meanwhile, I had been hearing rumbling up from the gutters of London this punk movement, which is all about not long hair, not peace and love, about anger. And I was kind of angry myself at the time, disaffected youth. And so I was trying to think of getting a band together, and I had a name, The Police. I wrote a manifesto. We don't care about that. We just want to, laughable, really. But there was this guy who could both sing and play bass. And obviously the man for me. He had charisma out to here. None of us realized how he could sing until later. Message in a Bottle has a lot of the favorite ingredients of the Police. It has a driving beat. It's one of the aggressive ones. It has that arpeggiated guitar figure, which Andy, Sting was really good at writing, and Andy just would kill those things and embellish them and build them. And not any guitarist can play that. Most guitarists kind of strum a chord, but Andy can finger pick that stuff with high energy through a big amp, and that was kind of a new thing. It also had the reggae-ish beat, four on the floor with that cross stick. It had all these elements that are sort of signature elements of the band, and I guess it kind of all comes together in that one tune. Nigel Gray was our producer for the first 3 albums, and he had a great sound. He knew where to put the microphones, which is pretty much all we needed. With Hugh Padgham as well, who did the later albums, he was really good at putting the microphones. Suddenly our sound just got much more spectacular, just because he really knew how to get a great sound out of the drum set in particular. But Nigel Gray had another factor, which is his bedside manner. And we were all young and codependent at the time, and he kind of got to know us all, and he could keep us playing nicely because we had, although we love each other dearly and admire each other and realized what we all brought to the party, it was not an easy fit. I've often described the Police as like a Prada suit made out of barbed wire. We're really happy with the result, but we get there through pain. And Nigel Gray was very good at keeping us playing nicely. One of our first releases, not our first record, but our first with a real record company was Roxanne. We had already released Fallout on my label, Illegal Records, but it sank without a trace. Actually, no, it didn't sink without a trace. We made money at it. We only sold 5,000 copies, but we saw every penny of those because it was Sting and I and Henry putting singles into the sleeves, me on the phone selling those boxes of records. Every dollar or pound sterling that came in was ours. So even though it didn't chart, we actually made money and split money up. For us, that's a hit. But then we signed with a real record company, for which you now have to sell a lot of records for it to be worth everyone's while. And Roxanne was our first attempt. Sank without a trace. Then we released Can't Stand Losing You. Sank without a trace. Then we released So Lonely. Sank without a trace. But this record company would not give up. They were intent on, they just believed. And so they went around again, released Roxanne again, and those same 3 records, released them all again. This time they started to tickle the BBC. And punk had opened people's minds to the idea that you don't have to sound like Electric Light Orchestra or any of the, or ABBA or any of the huge successful commercial acts of the day. You can change it up and still be popular. And I think that opened the way for us to do things slightly differently and be accepted by the general world at large. Strange thing about the songwriting was that every time Sting would pull a song out, we all go, wow, cool, let's start playing that. And every time Andy or I brought out a song, it was, okay, how much time do we have to spend on this? And by the way, this was an opinion shared by Andy and myself. I got the song, which I wrote, but that one Sting wrote, God, it's still going around my head. Fuck this, let's play that. That's not to say that we didn't come up with stuff. I've had a very rich career after the Police composing stuff. But in the context of the Police, those songs were just so strong that we all wanted to play those instead. There were some songs that I wrote that were just too dumb for Sting to sing, even when we were way back at the beginning. I'd written them in college and so on. And one of them, I went down to Nigel Gray's studio and recorded a handful of songs, and I played the guitar myself, played the drums, even sang the thing. And for some strange reason, the BBC decided to play it. I got on the BBC Radio 1 playlist and started to have a hit. Not a huge hit, but a hit. For me, walking the streets of London with my collar up, that was a hit. And not only that, but we got on Top of the Pops, which in those days in England was the show. You show up on Top of the Pops, national TV, your record's going to go up 10 places in the chart. And I didn't want to appear, although I'd played all the instruments, as solo act, I thought it was lame. One person on the stage. I'm a band guy. So I got Andy, Sting, and actually our tour manager, Kim Turner, to be the band. And we were all in masks, because the point of Clark Kent was that the mask reveals the true identity. And I had a mask. The Police at the time was dead in the water. This is before we had any hits. This is pre-Police. Even though we had the band, we were starving. And the reason for the disguise was because we were not only dead in the water, we were reviled as fakes, which was true. We were charlatans, carpetbaggers, capitalizing on our superior musicality, our 3 or 4 extra years of experience when all the other punk bands didn't know how to book a truck, didn't know how to get to the gig. They were completely amateurs, but we were like sharks in the pond. But we were busted by the journalists. Police, extremely uncool. So I had a mask. Nobody knew who it was. They heard the American accent. And they figured, well, it must be somebody. Maybe it's David Bowie. Maybe it's, Frank. I bet you it's Frank Zappa. And so all this buzz started going, and I did interviews with Melody Maker and so on with a mask, a Brezhnev mask or a whatever mask. So when we went on Top of the Pops, we were all in masks, including the manager, my brother Miles, who was also wearing a pig mask. And we went down there and played Top of the Pops in masks. It's there on YouTube. You can look it up. Don't Care. BBC Top of the Pops, and that's Sting wearing a gorilla mask. I think Andy's Brezhnev. On drums is the original Curved Air drummer, Florian Pilkington Mixa, and a guitarist was our tour manager, Kim Turner. That's me on bass. We were very fortunate that we had the inner fortitude to part ways right when everything was going our way, because it was very tough. It was a very tough environment. It's a strange dichotomy that we could feel the power of the music that we were making together. We'd fight our way to get to the result, but then we'd be very pleased with the result. And playing to those audiences was really kind of a thrill, but just the environment was so tortuous, and we all had dreams. We all had little exposure to life outside the band. I'd gone off and I'd scored a film for Francis Coppola, Rumblefish. And outside of the band environment, the music was flowing, the birds are singing, the butterflies are flapping their beautiful wings, the sky is blue outside of Police world. And so the world outside the band became very tempting, and the world inside the band was tortuous. And as the band grew, we kept making these steps when we would go from clubs to theaters. There's kind of a gap. We're going 200 people to 2,000 people. Can we do it? And we'd book that first theater, and good, we can do it. We'd sell the place out and be fine. Then the next step is from theaters to arena is actually kind of a big step, because you're going from maximum 3,000 to 4,000 people to 18,000. Can we do it? And the promoter, the manager, everybody's worrying, is this going to work? Let's try. I think we're ready. Let's try it. And it worked. We played Madison Square Garden was our first arena, and it worked. It was a weird, different environment for us. Okay, the next step is, can you take 18,000 and turn it into 80,000? Okay, now you're into Beatles country. I hope we got that. And it seemed to work out okay, and we got there, but we sat there at that position for 2 albums, Ghost in the Machine and Synchron. We were just going around playing the stadiums, and there was kind of no more up to go. And there was, like I say, a lot of tension, and the group was very tortuous. So that's the point we thought, this is going really well. This is a good time to cut and run, which we did. Show business is like that. You got to take the bit between your teeth and ride!